Now available in paperback and coming to Kindle Unlimited. John Haynes, Dark Succubus. The man who rules the world is tempted by a sultry succubus in this all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Dark Succubus in paperback or pre-order on Kindle Unlimited today. I just got through watching Netflix's When They See Us, and while I have issues with director Ava DuVernay as related to fantasy films, I can say that she did an amazing job as related to this miniseries. And with When They See Us, we get an objective presentation of the railroading of the 5 black boys who constituted the Central Park 5, and we get a critical look at New York's supposedly progressive criminal justice system. And under Ava DuVernay's critical examination of New York's supposedly progressive criminal justice system, we see that there is no difference between New York's supposedly progressive criminal justice system and the criminal justice system of the Jim Crow South. And with both of those criminal justice systems, we see that when it comes down to heterosexual black men cannot get any justice, because when it comes down to white women and heterosexual black men, they are seen as guilty until proven innocent, instead of our constitutional standard of innocent until proven guilty. And that is shown to us in the actions of your prosecutor, Linda Fairstein, and her unethical approach to going after these 5 black boys. Now, in this miniseries, they show her calling these 5 black boys animals, and this is what I see as something that instigated this whole presentation as related to these 5 black boys, the same way your Carolyn Bryant instigated the murder of Emmett Till, because this female, going on her feelings, decided to go after these boys. And because you had these males who wanted to get the attention and approval of this woman, these detectives went out of their way to go after these boys, brutally beating them and coercing confessions out of them, all to win the attention and approval and the favor of your Linda Fairstein. So I can see the gynocentrism going on here, and I can also see the racism going on here as related to what happened to the Central Park 5. So there was no objective standard as related to justice, and because these men wanted to get the approval of this white woman, they went out of their way to twist the evidence and make it fit her story and not fit the facts as related to the evidence. And when I look at this approach to so-called justice, it shows that gynocentrism has a major impact on your white males, because they went out of their way to beat and coerce the confessions out of these 5 black boys, and they did so again because they wanted to get the approval of this Linda Fairstein, a woman who willfully and intentionally knew that the evidence she was presenting did not add up in the case of these 5 black boys. And instead of this woman going out here and conceding that this evidence did not match what was going on, that the timeline did not match what was going on, what she did was continue to go on trying to make this evidence fit, and going out here to polarize people to do this. So when I look at your Linda Fairstein, I look at her in the same perspective that I see your Carolyn Bryant and the woman who went out here and led to the destruction of your Rosewood, and the white woman who went out here and instigated the destruction of your Black Wall Street. And Ava DuVernay shows us that when it comes down to the destruction of heterosexual black men's lives, it's always a white woman who is the catalyst for that destruction of those black men's lives. And these 5 black men and, well, really 4 black men and a Hispanic man, they got their lives destroyed because this white female wanted to go out here and be the center of attention. She wanted to get this prominence as related to her career, and she didn't care about getting justice and making sure that the right person was put away, in the same way that these white females back in the days of Jim Crow didn't care about getting justice when they made these allegations of rape against black men. Now, back in those days, many of those white women, they would make these allegations of rape against black men, all to cover up their sexual affairs with other men, and usually, like in the case of the destruction of the town of Rosewood and Black Wall Street, it was usually a white female who was out here having an affair with a white man, and then she'd make an accusation against the black man so that she would not get caught in her affair and not be held accountable. And when I look at Linda Fairstein, she did the exact same thing as those women who told those lies as related to the destruction of Black Wall Street and Rosewood, in telling this lie that these boys committed this crime, and then looking to prosecute these boys for this crime. So this crime that she was out alleging, she was using your New York State law enforcement to actually do what the Ku Klux Klan did, go out here and lynch 5 black boys, all because she didn't want to admit that she was wrong, and she didn't want to admit that she had participated in some extremely unethical behavior. The same way that these white females out here, they will go out of their way to say that something happened to them, when in actuality they were just as complicit in it. And then what they want to do is use a black man to be a scapegoat, and then have that black man lose his life all to cover up this white female's indiscretions. And that's the most disgusting thing about your Linda Fairstein and the other female who prosecuted this case, was they willfully and intentionally knew that these 5 boys did not commit this crime, and they looked to go out here and lynch these black boys right in your progressive New York City, the same way a group of Ku Klux Klansmen would go out of their way to lynch a black man back in the Jim Crow South. And when you look at both pictures, you see that nothing has changed as related to heterosexual black men, and the ethics of this white woman, they are extremely egregious, and her ethics have not changed from the grandmother who led to the destruction of the great-grandmother, I should say, who led to the destruction of Black Wall Street and Rosewood, the grandmother who went out here and got Emmett Till murdered, your Carolyn Bryant, to the mother which is your Linda Fairstein, who went out of her way to go out here and railroad your black boys, the Central Park 5. We see from one generation to the next, your white female has not changed, and because she has not changed, what has happened is we get the same complete railroading of heterosexual black men through the American justice system, whether it be on the conservative right or on the left. We see that there is no difference between either justice system, and when it comes down to black men, it's just us as related to getting justice. Because the Central Park 5 did not get any justice, because your Linda Fairstein again went out of her way to make this phony case up, and she made this phony case up, making it look like she was trying to get justice for this jogger, when in actuality it was about getting fame for herself, getting attention for herself, and she didn't care about getting justice. And when you really look at it, it's really sad, because in the case of this Central Park 5, what happened is that 3 other women wound up losing their lives and getting their lives violated by Matias Reyes, a serial rapist who went on to terrorize New York City for 3 more months as Linda Fairstein continued to craft her case against the Central Park Five and look to try to shoehorn this evidence and these coerced confessions into a story that did not fit the actual facts that transpired. And because of your Linda Fairstein's ethics, this led to New York City being a less safer place, the same way that the Jim Crow South was less safer after all of the lynchings that led to the deaths of many innocent black men. After your Ku Klux Klan murdered many of those innocent black men, many rapists, many pedophiles, and many other murderers managed to run free as these racists went on to try to have their smooth world where they didn't deal with the actual conflicts as related to who actually committed the crime, but managed to go out here and try to placate the feelings of white females and look to get the attention and approval of white females by going out here to murder innocent black men in lynchings. And what we saw with what Linda Fairstein did with the Central Park Five was another lynching. But this lynching was not in the Jim Crow South. No, this lynching went on in your progressive New York City, a city that was supposed to be just as tolerant and accepting of blacks as your 2017-2018 Philadelphia, where your Kevin Steele went out of his way to railroad Bill Cosby in a case that was just like the case that went on against the Central Park Five. And just like your Linda Fairstein, your Kevin Steele wanted to get fame and notoriety by destroying the life of Bill Cosby and went out of his way to railroad Bill Cosby in the same way that your Linda Fairstein railroaded the Central Park Five, going on a trumped-up case against a black man, saying that he sexually assaulted Andrea Constad, when in actuality no sexual assault transpired, in the same way that no rape transpired as related to your Central Park Five. And all of these cases, once you connect the dots as related to all of them, show us a America where, whether it be your left states, your blue states, or your red states, when it comes down to black, there is no justice for a black man either in a red state or a blue state. And as people go and look at this, when they see us and see the actual footage of Donald Trump as he made commentary on what happened with the Central Park jogger in 1989, they look at Donald Trump and see one racist, which is true, but they don't also take a critical look and see what Ava is presenting to us as related to this white woman. Because after I watched this, When They See Us, I can honestly say that I could never look at a white woman the same way again. And when I look at your white woman in this era of Me Too, I can honestly say that I can say that in most cases, when it comes down to white women, I have to put more distance between myself and white women, because when I see these white women, I see an adversary who could possibly put my life and my freedom at risk, all based on an allegation that she makes as related to any sort of matter. And when it comes down to your white woman, you just cannot see her the same way after you watch this miniseries, because once you watch this miniseries and you see the extreme lengths white women will go to destroy a black man's life, you cannot ever think about even thinking about doing anything like even swirling with this white woman, because this white woman, as I see it, she is just, if you look at the Linda Fairstein and what she did to those black boys, it just tears your heart out, because when I look at what she did, it's just so egregious. She knew that these boys didn't do this, and she had absolutely no conscience whatsoever. In fact, this white woman doubled down after evidence clearly showed that these boys did not commit these crimes, and she still continues to insist that these boys committed this crime, in the same way that your Donald Trump continues to insist that these boys committed this crime, even though the evidence clearly shows that there was no rape by the Central Park Five. They both continue to go on and say that this happened, and again, this denial shows how deeply disturbed many of these people are as related to gynocentrism and white women, that they will not admit that this female is wrong and that the female who led the charge is wrong, and they won't hold this female accountable. Instead, they want to try to give her a pass and not hold her accountable. And that's one of the things I give Ava DuVernay praise on for this film, in that she had the courage to actually call out these white women who led the charge for the destruction of the lives of these black men, and hold this female accountable, Linda Fairstein, and the other prosecutor who went out of their way to present this case. And that's something I have not ever seen done overall as related to a film, that somebody actually called out one of these white women and held her accountable for her actions. Now, as it relates to Donald Trump, yes, they took jabs at him, but I see that the real villain behind the scenes was this white woman, and she got no pass for Ava DuVernay, and I give her praise for not giving this white woman a pass, because it was her instigating this matter that led to these boys losing years of their lives, and it was this white woman going out of her way to push this case that led to these boys winding up doing time in prison for a crime that they did not commit. And while these boys were suffering in prison, this Linda Fairstein went on to have herself a wonderful career as a writer, writing these fictional stories that were just as fabricated as the story she made up against the Central Park Five. She's gone on to make millions of dollars. And I wonder, how does this woman sleep at night knowing that she destroyed these men's lives? And she shows that she just doesn't care. And that just shows how sick and twisted some of these white women are out here. They can destroy a black man's life and have absolutely no conscience about anything they have done, and not even care about what they have done. And even when people hold her accountable for what she has done, she tries to justify it and explain it. And that is the most disturbing thing about this Linda Fairstein and many of these white women out here. Because when I look at your Linda Fairstein, she is just like these women who are a part of this Me Too movement. Many of these same white women who are now making these allegations against black men, like your Bill Cosby and many other men out here, making these allegations, not concerning themselves about the lives they're destroying, the reputation they're destroying, and the people whose reputations are destroyed. She doesn't care about that. It's all about her feelings and not about the facts. And that's the most troubling thing after watching When They See Us. Because when you watch When They See Us, it shows us how dangerous a standard of trust and believe is. Because when it came down to Linda Fairstein, the NYPD and the criminal justice system trusted her and believed her, and her lies led to the destruction of the lives of 5 black men. And if anything, this miniseries shows us that we cannot go on a standard of trust and believe for any man in this country, especially black men, and that we need to get back to the standard of innocent until proven guilty. Because after watching When They See Us, I can honestly say that if you watch this miniseries, it destroys the narrative of Me Too, it destroys the narrative of trust and believe, and it destroys the whole idea that your white woman is sweet and innocent, because it was a dishonest, unethical white woman, Linda Fairstein, who led to the railroading of not only the Central Park Five, but she made New York less safer, because Matias Reyes was allowed to get 3 more months to terrorize New York City, all because she was in her feelings regarding 5 black boys, that she couldn't see how her feelings were coloring the criminal justice system and how her feelings were preventing her from doing her job objectively, and how her feelings had all of these males following her lead, and they followed her lead and led to the complete destruction of those black boys' lives, made New York less safer, and literally did so much damage that it wasn't even funny. And while many people like the New York Times, they want to try to come in here and white knight for Linda Fairstein, I'm sorry, there is no white knighting. And as they're trying to point out in an article saying that this was an exaggeration, I don't see any exaggeration. As someone who lived in New York City in 1989 and saw what a war zone it was, and I was actually at Park West when this event transpired, the Central Park jogger, I can say that Ava DuVernay did not exaggerate. She presented raw facts to you. She presented raw facts in When They See Us, and When They See Us gives us a picture of your New York City that's supposed to be so progressive, and showing us how racist New York's criminal justice system is, and how New York's progressive criminal justice system is no different than the criminal justice system of the Jim Crow South. Because right now, to this day, your progressives, they're the ones sitting there talking about how they want to run Bill de Blasio for president, when the man who choked out Eric Garner is still on the job here in New York City, making 6 figures. Yet they're going to sit there and talk about how progressive they are when we look at your Central Park 5 in 1989 and see that nothing has changed in New York City in 2019, and that New York City 2019 is just like Jim Crow South 1919. And it shows us that when it comes down to America, which is trying to make itself great again, it's not great as it relates to black men. And your party that is supposed to be on the side of black people in New York, that's currently controlling New York, they were in charge in 1989, and there's still no hope and no change for black men getting justice in 2019. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.